What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel where we talk about everything sports related. And today we got a good one. So, as you guys already know, the NBA is having their 75th anniversary this year. So this season is the 75th season in NBA history. And with that, they decided to come out with a 75th anniversary team. So they picked the best 75 players that have ever played in the NBA and put them all together on one team. And so you can see here, we got the list of all the 75 players. And so you got your usual suspects like Lebron James, Magic Johnson, Shaq, Dirt, people you would expect to make the list. But this list has been getting everybody worked up because there's a lot of players that got left out. And so let's look at the criteria they picked. So right here you can see they said they selected for being pioneers that help shape, define, and redefine the game. So keep that in mind. All in all, is a pretty cool list though. It's got like a lot of good players, and it's cool to see people get recognition. Like check out Reggie Miller when he found out that he made the team.
Reggie Miller, congratulations.
Wait,
Reggie, you're on.
what are you guys talking about?
You're on the list.
You're on the list,
You're on
brother.
the list, man.
Whoa! Seriously, okay.
And so yeah, man, stuff like that is pretty cool. To have a 75 player list for the 75th anniversary. But with any list, it comes snubs. So without further ado, let's get into it. So for the snubs from this list, I went through and I found 5 players that got left out that I think had a good chance, that had a good argument for making the list. So let's start with number 5. So number 5, we have Vince Carter. So you may know Vince Carter most notably from the dunk contest, from his dunking. That's what he's most known for. But stats wise, he has some pretty good stats, to hold his own to make this list, I think. Let's check out some of the stats. All right, so right here we got Vince Carter's stats, and god damn, he's played a lot of seasons. Look how many seasons he's played, man. This is crazy. All right, so he played from 1998 to basically last year. So let's see points per game. So his best season was in 2000, 2001. He averaged 27 points a game. That's pretty good. And around that same time, he averaged 25, 24 points per game. So that's pretty solid. If you look at his stats, more than half of his career, he averaged 20 points or more, which is pretty decent. That's a pretty good stat line. And I would say for most of the years that he was in the league, especially those Toronto years, I would say he was the lead guy on the team. He was the go-to guy as far as scoring and getting everything, being their star player. He made all-stars every year. So, based on that, I think he has a good chance or a good argument to make the 75th anniversary team, especially when you look at the criteria and it says pioneers that help shape, define, and redefine the game. At one point, he was known as the guy for like the dunks, the high, flashy, the early 2000s. He was kind of like one of the faces of the league. So from that standpoint, I think, the way I think of it is this: if you can write the history of the sport and leave that person out, then it's the same as the Hall of Fame. Like, can you tell the story of the NBA without mentioning this player's name? And for Vince Carter, I think that's a hard case to make, as far as the dunk contest and just him being so athletic. Even in his last year of playing, he was still able to dunk. He's like 40 something. He'll probably be able to dunk till he's like 70, 80 years old. So I think for that reason, he should have made the list. Being able to tell the story of the NBA without Vince Carter, you're going to be missing bits and pieces as far as like even in the Olympics when the dude jumped over like a 7-footer, for a dunk, stuff like that. That's in the lore of the NBA. So I think he should have made it, in my opinion. So yeah, let's go on to number 4. So number 4, we have Vince Carter's cousin, Tracy McGrady. All right, so let's pull up Tracy McGrady's stats here. So we got him right here. He didn't play as long as Vince Carter, for injury reasons, but let's take a look at some of his best years. All right, so early 2000 again, his best year, he averaged 32 points a game, which is really, really nice. That's even more than Vince Carter. And after that, 28. So again, he averaged more than 20 points per game for more than half of his career. And again, he was in terms of being in Houston and Orlando, even Toronto, he was a really solid player. He's also kind of up there as one of those guys that was top in the league, at this time. 2-time scoring champ, most improved, 7-time All-Star, 7-time All-NBA, of course, Hall of Fame. So, yeah, man. I mean, with this list, it's hard to keep so many people. Some people are going to make it off. But with T-Mac, man, it's just hard to imagine not putting him on the 75th anniversary. And I think the reason why is because, again, it comes to being able to tell the story of the NBA. And for him, it was the Houston years of Yao Ming. Him and Yao Ming, when they were in Houston, they were just like killing the league, just dominating, just taking over everything. So it's kind of crazy to leave him off the 75th anniversary year. Is Yao Ming on the list? Let me see. Wow, okay. Yao Ming's not on this list. All right, that's another snub right there. I didn't even include in the list. But yeah, man, Tracy McGrady, as far as being in the 75th anniversary, you know, I think for just his scoring and just his ability, like a lot of players get compared to Tracy McGrady. Like I see all the time, Paul George when he was coming out. A lot of players, it seems like every year somebody gets kind of comped to Tracy McGrady. So in that regard, it's kind of like if you compare a lot of players to Tracy McGrady, you know, he's got to be considered one of the most, let's go back to that criteria, define, shape, redefine the game. So, hey, it's my opinion, but let's see who's number 3. So number 3, we have Derrick Rose. All right, Derrick Rose. This is going to be a controversial one, Derrick Rose. So when it comes to Derrick Rose, let's look at his stats. All right, so here we have the stats for Derrick Rose. So in terms of his stats, NBA stats, so he had his best year, of course, was early 2010-11. I'm assuming that's the MVP year. Yeah, MVP year, 25 points per game. You can see the points per game is not up there for most of his career. He only had a couple years where he was over 20. The rest of that, he kind of became a role player. And, of course, his injuries. You know, everybody knows the story of Derrick Rose. But, man, this is a tough one because, like I said, Derrick Rose was, you know, for those 2 or 3 seasons, man, he was the guy. He was going to be the face of the NBA. He was on a trajectory that was just sky high, man, but just injuries, you know, knee injuries, ACLs, all that stuff. It really killed not only his career, but it's kind of his legacy, you know, because it cut it short. So, yeah, in terms of his impact for making the 75th anniversary team, I think it comes down to, like I said, just being able to tell the story of the NBA without him. So his career, one thing that's special about Derrick Rose is that he rose to a star player so young. You know, only 2 or 3 years into his career, he became just like a super mega star. And that had a lot of changes when it comes to contracts. So you may or may not be familiar with what's called the Derrick Rose rule, but it was basically a new contract rule that they added for specifically for Derrick Rose after he just exploded after his rookie year. So basically this Rose rule is called the Designated Player Rookie Scale Extension, kind of big term, but basically it's a term where it's a rule in a contract where a young player is able to get a much higher salary, like a max contract if they've done things like make all NBA team or get named the MVP of the league. So this was a rule that was added in specifically for Derrick Rose because nobody had done anything like he's done before, like make the MVP, become a superstar franchise player that young, you know, into his career. And so that rule has basically helped shape a lot of the bargaining agreements, contracts we see today with, you know, max contracts. So for that reason alone, I think not that reason, but just his superstardom is one reason he had a case for making the list. It's not really a strong case, but, you know, over some of the players that made it, you could say Derrick Rose could have made it in. All right, so we have 2 more snubs. And before I get into these last 2, make sure you guys hit the subscribe button. Make sure you follow, get tuned in to all the latest videos. We're going to be dropping more NFL, NBA, all the kind of sports content. So make sure you subscribe. All right, so number 2 on the snub list is Tony Parker. So Tony Parker was a point guard for the San Antonio Spurs for many, many years. He was a part of that legendary dynasty between him and Tim Duncan and Manu Ginobili. And so, yeah, let's look into his stats to see if he has a case for making this 75th anniversary list. All right, so we got the stats here. So, of course, he is a point guard, so we got to look at both the assists and the points and whatnot. And stats is looking pretty good. I mean, 20 so points in his best years, high assist numbers, up in the 5, 6, 7 is what you want to see for a point guard. And I think for Tony Parker, the thing is he was consistent. He had the consistency year in, year out. Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili. He was a catalyst in that Spurs. He was a key piece of that Spurs dynasty with Pop, for so many years. So, yeah, just looking at his stats, nothing really pops out for 1 year, but just the consistency he had and just the dynasty, just the pure dynasty that the Spurs had for so many years. I mean, if you look at who's won a championship, like when I try to think back of who's won a championship, I can remember most years, like 06, with the Heat and certain years. But if it's a year I can never remember, I just automatically all right, Spurs won that year. It seems like every other year the Spurs just won a championship, just 5, 6. You look up, they got 5, 6 championships total. So he was a big reason for that. There's some chatter about why he got left off with the whole cheating scandal, whatnot. I ain't gonna get into that, but for sure, Tony Parker definitely had a case to be made for making that 75th anniversary list. So, all right, we have one more snub left, and so if you've been following Twitter, you probably know who this snub is. It's been getting a lot of chatter. It's been trending, but the number one snub for the NBA 75th anniversary team is no other than Dwight Howard. All right, so we got Dwight Howard stats pulled up right here, and man, I was following this on Twitter yesterday, and this was just crazy. A lot of back and forth, people talking about this, but to me and a lot of people, this is easily the top snub of this list, man. Let's look at his stats. I mean, we got 22 points. Of course, he was a center mostly for the Orlando Magic in his younger years when he was dominant. So let's look at the blocks. High amount of blocks per rebounds. This dude's just a beast. I think the issue is that now he's still in the league. What you see now is just not in comparison with what he was when he was in his prime. I mean, just look at the accolades. He has 3-time defensive player of the year, 5 all defensive NBA, 2-time block champ, 8-time all NBA, 8-time all-star. And so I think the thing is, when he was dominant, you can see it was earlier in his career. So around 2010, 2007. I mean, this man he was the last great center we've had since Shaq. I mean, he may be the last great center we ever have with the direction that the NBA is going with shooting and, just long range, threes. He might be like the last dominant center we could ever see, at least for a while. Because he was able to carry a Magic team to the championship on his own in the finals. And there's not many centers that now or back then that could have done that. I mean, before him, it was Shaq, and then, of course, all the great centers, before them. But in today's game, for a center to be able to just carry a team to the championship, and he beat a lot of good teams with the way there. He beat LeBron. I believe he beat the Celtics 1 year. So Dwight Howard, man, he's not getting his flowers when it comes to his early career. He was just straight dominant. He was able to take a team of, let me see who's on that team for the Magic. He was able to take a team of Jameer Nelson, Glenn Davis, Brandon Bass, JJ Redick, Turkoglu. He was able to take a team like this, and just because he was so dominant when it came to, being in the paint, they just surrounded him with shooters, and everything just went through Dwight. He would get in the post. He would like to get double, even triple team, and then just kick it out to the open shooter, and that rolled them all the way to the finals, man. So, yeah, how they were able to leave Dwight Howard off this list, there's been a lot of tweets you've seen on Twitter, people talking about it, but it's just kind of ridiculous to leave him off. So, all right, so let's look at some of the people. Now that we talked about the snubs, let's talk about who we would leave off. Because a lot of times you hear people talking about this guy should have made it, this guy should have made it, but they never talk about who should have made it off, who should have got taken off. Because you can only have 75, which is why you had a snub. All right, so a couple names I've seen people talking about, and a lot of them I agree with. One of them is, yes, Anthony Davis. So as you can see, Anthony Davis made this 75 anniversary team, and a lot of people, and I agree, that putting Anthony Davis over Dwight is kind of a travesty when it comes to a 75 anniversary team, because Anthony Davis, before he had LeBron and went to LA, this dude was just barely making the playoffs. He barely would stay healthy, barely made the playoffs, and how he was able to make it over a guy that just took his team to the finals basically on his shoulders. Literally, Dwight, big shoulders. It's just crazy to me. So Even over, I mean, for center to center, you can say, yeah, Dwight should have easily made it off Anthony Davis. When it comes to the end of 100th year anniversary, for sure, AD will probably make it. But if we're going off base of just where their careers right now and just what they were able to accomplish, yeah, hands down, Dwight over AD any day. All right, so I'll give one more person that I think could have got left off this list. And since we gave a forward center last time, I'll give a guard. And for this one, I'm going to say Damian Lillard. And it hurts to say this because I really like Damian Lillard. I like Dame. I like his game, but it's just too early. It's too early to put him in this 75th anniversary team. If you stack up his accolades to what he's done compared to Tony Parker and some other people that got left off, he just doesn't have, the resume. That's the only thing is he has the skill. I think by the time his time comes, he'll be there. But just right now, he doesn't have the resume. All right, so let's take a look at Dame's stats. So, like I said, stat-wise, he's gonna make it. He's gonna be on this list. I mean, he's had 30 points per game just last year, 28, 27. He's improving every year. But yeah, just here you can see the resume is light. Only 6-time All-Star, All-NBA. But the issue is he's never really carried a team to the finals. He's never carried a team to the finals. I think the furthest he's made is the Western Conference Final where he got swept. He's a rookie of the year. He started out hot. Like I said, Dame, he's a killer, man. Don't make this a hate. His middle name is Lamonte Ali. I just saw his middle name, Damian Lamonte Ali Lillard. Oh my God, that is so many L's. All right, anyway, back to the stats. But yeah, like I said, right now I think Dame is just too premature. Will he make that 100th anniversary team? For sure, 100%. But right now, to have him over guys like Tony Parker, you can even say Vince Carter, people like that, I think it's kind of a reach. So yeah. Well, all right. That's it. We went through the 5 snubs, the biggest snubs from the 75th anniversary team. Who do you guys think left off was deserving, or do you think anybody that made the team deserved it? Let me know who you agree with or disagree with down in the comments. So that'll pretty much do it here. That's it. Make sure you subscribe and follow. Thanks for checking out the video. Peace.